Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. According to The Bold and the Beautiful BNB spoilers, Darcy Dillon, Kelly Sullivan, may receive disturbing news that sends her racing to Los Angeles. Could Darcy's initial motive for coming to town be related to a major accident involving her daughter, Melissa Dillon, Sydney Bullock? The program has already dropped hints regarding Will Spencer's, Crew Morrow, likely motorbike accident. BNB has made it clear that Will rides a risky bike, and Katie Logan Spencer, Heather Tom, is concerned about his spinning out on it. However, Will may not be the only one who ends up in serious danger while riding his motorcycle. What if Dillon gets on the back at some time and gets into a big accident with Will? That could lead to both Will and Dillon becoming hospitalized in the near future. Dillon's parents would undoubtedly be told, which could explain why Darcy appears in Los Angeles unexpectedly. After all, it appears weird for Darcy to suddenly become interested in Dillon's life and show up after so much time. Perhaps this trip will be about more than just catching up with Dillon and seeing how she's doing. Darcy might receive an unsettling phone call regarding Dillon's hospitalization, which could put her on the first aircraft to Los Angeles. Darcy's debut on August 27th may take place because Dillon was involved in a catastrophic collision with Will. Of course, the show might employ excuses to keep Dillon's father off-screen, such as his being completely unreachable in another nation or anything similar. BNB has gone as far as sending characters on safari to explain absences when necessary. Regardless, Dillon wants to get closer to Will and would undoubtedly enjoy a trip on the back of his bike. Will and Dillon will be spending more time together in the following weeks, which may lead to them sleeping together for the next part of the novel. According to The Bold and the Beautiful teasers, Darcy will come to a mess in one form or another, so keep watching the CBS drama. In the swirling turmoil of Los Angeles high society and the interconnecting worlds of fashion and publishing, few daytime television tales have caught the raw sensitivity and smoldering ambition quite like Melissa Dillon's. Dillon, as she is known to those who have brought her into their orbit, has gone from the outskirts of the painting to the heart of the Forrester-Spencer conflict. What started as a desperate attempt to survive after months of living in her car, has turned into a complex web of loyalty, desire, and unintended consequences. With speculations emerging among fans and industry watchers that a horrific crash involving Will Spencer may hurt Dillon and cause her mother Darcy to rush across the nation to Los Angeles, the stakes have never been greater. Will Spencer has always been a young man characterized by intensity. The son of Bill and Katie Spencer bears the burden of two great family names and the expectations that come with them. His relationship with Electra Forrester was once the bright, hopeful focal point of his life. They shared a beach house, aspirations for a future free of the continuous feuds that define their elders, and true affection that had weathered previous traumas. However, the fractures began to show. Secrets concerning the House of Logan jewelry line, the lingering shadow of Luna Nozawa's death, and persistent intervention from both the Forrester and Spencer sides of the aisle all weakened the foundation. When Will's aggravation erupted into a violent altercation at Bikini Bar, ending in an unintentional strike to Eric Forrester rather than RJ, the relationship came to an end. Electra stepped away, blaming the anguish, family pressure, and her belief that Will could not entirely detach himself from the toxic dynamics that surrounded him. Dillon stepped into the emotional hole. She was already residing in Will's guest rooms above the garage when he and Electra discovered her destitution. The arrangement was born out of compassion. Dillon had said that an apartment had fallen through, that motel stays had depleted her minimal income, and that her automobile had been her sole shelter. Will and Electra offered her temporary shelter. What neither of them anticipated was Dillon's quiet connection to Will. Over time, that attachment grew into something far more intricate. Dillon no longer felt bound by her earlier commitments to keep her distance once Electra stopped things permanently. She consoled Will in his anguish. Late nights at the beach house led to shared admissions. A kiss turned into something more. By the time Electra realized what had happened, the two young women's friendship was shattered, and Dillon found herself in the midst of a family fight she had never intended to participate in. Katie Spencer has watched these developments with increasing concern. As a mother who has witnessed her fair share of opportunistic partnerships and deadly connections, she views Dylan with distrust. Katie's queries have become sharper. She asks for information about Dylan's past, her family, and her genuine motivations for staying so close to Will. Dylan's responses are carefully measured. She expresses her love of the arts, respect for the Spencer name, and real affections for Will. However, Katie senses that the story is incomplete. The entrance of Remy Price, Dylan's cousin, heightened the notion that the young woman's past is more complicated than she has confessed. Remy's prior actions, which included the fabrication of harmful deepfake material, cast a lengthy shadow. Katie's protective instincts are fully activated, and she has made it obvious that she will investigate until she knows exactly who has connected herself to her boy. Against this backdrop of escalating animosity, the news has sent shockwaves through the fan community. Will Spencer, who is still dealing with the split and the public aftermath from his actions against the Foresters, has been depicted as becoming increasingly irresponsible in recent reports. His motorcycle has come up in conversation with both Eric and Katie, with the latter expressing an open hatred for it. In a soap opera world where foreshadowing is rarely accidental, such innocuous remarks have taken on sinister significance. Speculation has grown that Will's emotional state, paired with the motorcycle's high-speed freedom, could result in a devastating accident. According to early stories, Dylan may have been with him or close when the incident occurred, incurring her own injuries. It's unknown whether the incident was caused by a momentary distraction, a roadside altercation that escalated, or simply poor luck. What is certain is that the fallout will send every major actor into crisis mode. Dylan being injured as a result of Will's tragedy is especially poignant given her previous involvement in another fatal vehicular accident. Dylan was driving on the foggy night when Luna Nozawa, who was evading police, collided with her automobile. Luna died, leaving an unborn child whose parentage had already affected Will's life. Dylan confessed. The death was ruled an accident. Finn and Steffi extended a measure of forgiveness. However, the characters involved have never forgotten what happened that night. Will has faced the dual burden of knowing the truth and having been the intended target of Luna's last assault. If Dylan is injured in a wreck with Will, the emotional echoes of the earlier tragedy will be impossible to ignore. Guilt, terror, and the complexities of their developing relationship would intersect in ways that the canvas has yet to completely explore. Mama Darcy is likely to jump into the possible situation. Kelly Sullivan's casting as Darcy Dylan expands the character's universe considerably. Until now, Dylan has mostly been a solitary figure in Los Angeles. She kept her family at a remove during her homelessness, refusing to reveal how deep she had fallen. The revelation of cousin Remy provided a glimpse into her past, but little else. Darcy's arrival changes the dynamic completely. According to those involved in the production, Darcy is a force of nature, a mother who will not stand on the sidelines once she discovers her daughter is embroiled in high-stakes drama and possibly physical danger. The reasons for Darcy's unexpected trip to Los Angeles are multifaceted. On the surface, a mother's normal reaction to learning her child has been hurt would be enough to get her on the next aircraft. However, the timing indicates deeper motivations. Dylan has become involved with two of the city's most powerful and volatile families. She works for Forrester Creations, thanks in part to Steffi's intercession. She has started a romantic relationship with Will Spencer, which has cost her a close friendship and garnered Katie's attention. Any mother would want to analyze the situation for herself, to see if her daughter is being used, protected, or swept along by powers greater than herself. Darcy may also be aware of family history that Dylan has decided not to disclose. Dylan's actions that led her to Los Angeles, the secrets that impacted her choices, and the truth about her connection with Remy may all come to light once mother and daughter meet. Fans have long speculated on the holes in Dylan's biography. Why did she arrive in the city with such limited resources? What events led to her sleeping in her van while yet managing to offer art classes and eventually land a job at Forrester? How much of her vulnerability was genuine, And how much, if any, was conveyed strategically? Darcy's presence suggests answers. It remains to be seen whether Dylan's replies portray him as a survivor who has made difficult decisions, or as someone more calculated. Soap history is rife with characters whose mothers arrive just in time to defend or expose them. Darcy appears to be positioned to do both. The broader consequences for the Spencer and Forrester families are considerable. If Will is hurt or is at fault in an accident that harms Dylan, the already tense relationship between the families will be stressed even further. Bill Spencer has pushed his son to move on from Elektra and pursue new opportunities. Katie has chosen the opposite position, specifically toward Dylan. An accident would force both parents to face the truth about their son's emotional state and the company he keeps. On the Forrester end, Elektra's leftover affections, RJ's prolonged presence, and Steffi's watchful management of the company would all come into play. Dylan's employment, which is already jeopardized by the breakdown of her connection with Elektra, may hang in the balance depending on how the crash is interpreted and how Darcy chooses to advocate for her daughter. Emotionally, the tale is rich. Will has spent months torn between rage, sadness, and a hesitant openness to a new relationship. Dylan has transitioned from grateful guest to stated romantic interest, risking isolation in the process. Their connection is apparent, but it was founded on the ashes of another love and the unsolved trauma of Luna's death. A shared brush with death has the potential to either strengthen or weaken their friendship. Katie's investigation into Dylan's background would become more urgent if her son's life was in peril. Darcy's entrance would bring in a new perspective that neither the Spencers nor the Forresters could readily manage. As the days before these potential occurrences pass, the atmosphere on the canvas stays charged. Dylan continues to negotiate her role at Forrester Creations while asserting her right to pursue Will. Will is caught between his father's advice, his mother's cautions, and the tug of his own unresolved emotions. Elektra strives to reconstruct a life that no longer involves the man she once imagined sharing a future with. And somewhere beyond Los Angeles, Darcy Dillon prepares to enter a world that her daughter has only partially described. If the crash happens as predicted, it will be more than just a story device. It would highlight the risks of the emotional high-wire act these characters have been playing. Motorcycles, late-night rides, and the inability to halt down in the face of heartbreak are long-standing elements of dramatic storytelling for a reason. They bring the internal instability outside. Dylan, who was already haunted by the memories of one terrible accident, knew that being hurt in connection with Will would force her to confront her own past and the decisions that led her to this point. For Will, it would be yet another consequence of a life lived at full throttle with little consideration for those caught in his path. Darcy's hurry to Los Angeles is more than just a parental impulse. It marks the arrival of a missing piece in Dylan's story, a character capable of demanding honesty in a way that no one else can. Darcy's presence will shift the balance of power, whether she finds her daughter recovering from injuries, becoming more deeply involved with the Spencers, or at a crossroads between the life she has constructed and the truth she has kept hidden. The Forrester and Spencer families have long held the belief that outsiders may be managed or absorbed. A mother who refuses to be handled may be more disruptive than any of them realize. Finally, the building narrative centered on Dylan, Will, and the approaching arrival of Mama Darcy demonstrates the ongoing attractiveness of these long-running sagas. They thrive on the collision of human desire and familial obligation, on how a single accident can rewrite numerous futures, and on a parent's quiet capacity to intercede. As Los Angeles continues to act as the glittering, hazardous stage for these confrontations, viewers are left to watch the pieces move into place. The crash, the injuries, and the mother's emergency journey are more than just prospective narrative points. They are the unavoidable result of months of increasing strain, secrets kept hidden, and hearts that refuse to remain safely on the sidelines. Whatever happens next will put to the test every alliance and carefully crafted version of the reality that these individuals have chosen to believe. The Spencer and Forrester families' animosity had been building for weeks when it erupted on a rain-soaked stretch of Pacific Coast Highway, leaving one young woman fighting for her life and another running across the nation to her side. What began as a simple late-night ride to clear Will Spencer's mind after yet another tense confrontation with Electra Forrester turned into twisted metal, flashing lights, and the type of hospital corridor drama that defines life in Los Angeles when the city's most powerful families are involved. Will had been drinking. Not heavily by the standards of Bikini Bar's normal customers, but enough that the combination of booze, heartbreak, and the raw force of his motorcycle proved devastating. Electra had made it apparent earlier that evening that their on-and-off-again relationship was over for good. The words reverberated in his ears as he dashed out of the beach house parking lot, Dylan following him on foot and yelling his name. She had merely wanted to communicate, to provide him the same quiet comfort she had provided so many times before. Instead, she found herself riding onto the back of the bike when he refused to leave without her, arms tightly wrapped around his waist as the wind thrashed her hair and the city lights blurred by. The disaster occurred so quickly that neither of them could later reconstruct the exact sequence. A sharp bend, a patch of oil combined with precipitation, and an unexpected loss of traction. The motorcycle came down hard. Will was tossed clear, but walked away with only bruises and a concussion. Dylan wasn't as fortunate. The force of the contact caused her to skid over the asphalt. When the first responders came, she was unconscious, with one knee twisted at an odd angle and blood on her hair from where her head had slammed the guardrail. The close-knit world of Forrester Creations and Spencer Publications spread news like wildfire. Katie Logan was the first family member to arrive at the hospital, her face pallid as she requested explanations from the attending physician. Bill Spencer arrived shortly thereafter, already calculating the legal and public relations ramifications. Electra entered in the waiting room, distraught, divided between resentment toward Will and real concern for the young woman who had once been her friend. Steffi Forrester made a quick presence, professional and composed, giving whatever resources the company had available. However, the individual whose arrival was most important was still thousands of miles away. Darcy Dillon received a call in the middle of the night. The voice on the other end was that of a hospital social worker who had identified Dillon's phone number under the basic listing, Mom. The specifics were limited but terrifying. A motorcycle accident, several fractures, possibly internal injuries, and emergency surgery now in progress. Darcy didn't hesitate. Within an hour, she had booked the first available ticket out of the little Midwestern city where she had lived for the previous decade. By dawn, she was in the air, peering out the window at the clouds and remembering every discussion she had with her daughter over the previous year. Their relationship had never been simple. Dillon, also known as Melissa to her mother, left home at the age of 18 with high hopes of studying art and dance in California. Darcy had backed the decision despite her concerns about the perils that lay ahead in a city that devoured and spewed up idealistic young ladies. Dillon's phone calls decreased after she began teaching preschool painting courses and became involved with the Forrester and Spencer families. Darcy only knew snippets of the truth. Her daughter had been kidnapped by a dangerous woman named Luna. She had accidentally hit and killed that same woman while driving through fog, and she had later found herself homeless and living out of her car until Will and Electra offered her a place to stay. Darcy had no idea how deeply Dillon had fallen for Will, or how tangled his feelings had gotten after Electra's jealousy turned venomous. Arriving at LAX seemed weird. The dazzling California sun appeared almost mocking after the antiseptic fluorescent lights of the airport building. Darcy leased a car and went straight to the hospital, her hands firmly gripping the steering wheel as she navigated unfamiliar freeways. She had planned what she would say when she finally saw her daughter, but the words vanished the moment she walked into the intensive care unit and saw Dillon lying still, tubes and monitors encircling the bed like a mechanical forest. The attending physician provided her with clinically precise information. Multiple fractures to the right leg and pelvis. Cracked rib. A concussion had left her comatose for over 12 hours. The surgery to pin the limb had gone well, but the recuperation would be long and unpleasant. Infection remained a possibility. The following 48 hours would be vital. Darcy listened without interrupting, then voiced the question that had been bothering her since the phone call. Was anyone else hurt? When she learnt that Will Spencer had escaped with just minor injuries, something icy sank in her chest. She had never met the young man, but she had heard enough second-hand accounts to develop a judgment. Rich, impulsive, and the product of a family that viewed consequences as optional. Her fury boiled when she realized he had been drinking before getting on a motorcycle with her daughter as a passenger. She wanted answers, and she wanted them now.